It was the height of the First World War. Despite Germany's significant territorial gains across continental Europe, its high seas fleet remained confined to port, restricted by the far more powerful Grand Fleet of the Royal Navy. When Vice Admiral Reinhard Scheer took command, he was determined to break the blockade once and for all. He crafted a strategy to split the British Grand Fleet, draw part of it into a trap, and destroy it before reinforcements could arrive. Scheer ordered his first scouting group, led by Franz Hipper, to head north with the aim of luring Sir David Beatty's battlecruiser fleet out to sea. The idea was to create a minor engagement that would not concern Admiral Jellicoe's main fleet. Once engaged, Hipper would retreat south with Beatty's forces in pursuit, leading them directly into the guns of Scheer's fleet. The goal was to inflict a devastating blow on the Royal Navy. On May 31, 1916, Scheer successfully drew Beatty's fleet into the North Sea. What he didn't know was that British intelligence had intercepted and decoded his communications. Rather than facing a fragmented fleet, Scheer would now confront the full strength of the Royal Navy. The battle that followed would become the last major confrontation between battleships in world history. 2 years had passed since the war began, yet no significant naval battle had occurred. The Germans understood that their fleet was numerically inferior to the British, who had the advantage of a long-standing naval tradition. The British believed that as long as the German fleet stayed in port and didn't threaten shipping lanes or supply routes, it wasn't worth risking an engagement, especially with German U-boats posing a constant danger. As a result, the German surface fleet largely stayed in harbour, while U-boats took on the task of weakening British sea power. The British, in turn, allowed the German fleet to remain bottled up, preferring not to engage unless necessary. The Germans hoped that over time, their submarines would reduce the Royal Navy's strength to the point where a decisive surface battle would be possible. This status quo held until Vice Admiral Reinhard Scheer replaced the cautious Admiral Hugo von Pohl. Scheer knew he couldn't defeat the entire Royal Navy in open battle, so he developed a plan to isolate and eliminate a smaller portion of the fleet. Before reinforcements could arrive, to set his trap, Scheer launched a bombardment of Lowestoft and Great Yarmouth on April 25, 1916. Expecting the British to respond by sending forces south, as anticipated, Admiral Jellicoe dispatched the 5th Battle Squadron from Scapa Flow in Scotland to reinforce Vice Admiral Sir David Beatty's battlecruisers at Rosyth. Scheer intended to intercept and destroy this detachment before they could retreat. Beatty's fleet now consisted of 6 battlecruisers and 4 Queen Elizabeth-class dreadnoughts. With the target isolated, Scheer initiated the second phase of his plan, sending Hipper's scouting group north toward the Norwegian coast. The group included the battlecruiser Lutzow and 4 light cruisers. Their presence was meant to draw Beatty into pursuit. Scheer followed approximately 50 miles behind. If Beatty engaged Hipper, Scheer would attack with the full force of the High Seas Fleet. Destroying Beatty's force would put the Germans in a stronger position to challenge Jellicoe and seek dominance in the North Sea. The plan was sound, but the Germans were unaware that British intelligence had intercepted their orders. The Royal Navy quickly mobilized. Even before Hipper's group left port, the Grand Fleet was already at sea, racing to rendezvous with Beatty near the Skagerrak, close to where the Germans hoped to launch their attack. Hipper's group, finally, departed around 1 a.m. on May 31st, spearheading a force of over 100 ships and about 45,000 sailors. Scheer did not realize that instead of catching the British by surprise, he was sailing into a trap of his own. Facing over 151 British ships and more than 60,000 men, in what would become the largest naval battle in history to that point. By 1:30 p.m. on May 31st, both fleets were on a collision course, though neither side realized how close they were to the enemy. Hipper had no indication that his feint had successfully drawn out Beatty's forces. Meanwhile, the British believed it would be another uneventful mission, expecting no German ships to appear. This belief was reinforced when Jellicoe noted that the German flagship's callsign was still being transmitted from port. During the height of the First World War, Germany had made significant gains across continental Europe, yet its high seas fleet remained confined to port by the superior strength of the Royal Navy's Grand Fleet. When Vice Admiral Reinhard Scheer assumed command, he was determined to end the naval stalemate and devised a strategy to escape the British blockade. His plan involved drawing a portion of the British fleet into a trap, isolating it from the main force, and destroying it before reinforcements could arrive. To begin, Scheer ordered Franz Hipper and his scouting group to head north with the aim of provoking Sir David Beattie's battlecruiser fleet into action. The maneuver was designed to appear as a small skirmish, one that would not alarm Admiral Jellicoe, or prompt the full deployment of the Grand Fleet. If Beattie took the bait, Hipper would lead his pursuers south, directly into the path of Scheer's main fleet, where a devastating ambush awaited. On May 31, 1916, the plan appeared to work as Beattie's fleet pursued the German scouting group into the North Sea. However, unknown to Scheer, British intelligence had intercepted and decoded German communications. Instead of encountering only Beattie's ships, the German fleet would face the full force of the Royal Navy in what would become the final major battleship confrontation in history. By this point in the war, 2 years had passed without any large-scale naval battles. The Germans recognized that their high seas fleet was outmatched by the numerically superior British, whose long history of naval dominance gave them a distinct tactical advantage. The British, in turn, saw little reason to challenge the German fleet as long as it remained in port and did not threaten vital supply routes or convoys. Attempting to destroy it outright was considered too risky, especially with German U-boats patrolling the seas. As a result, the German Navy refrained from launching large-scale naval operations, relying instead on submarines to gradually erode British sea power. The British allowed the situation to continue, keeping the German ships trapped while avoiding direct confrontation. The German strategy hinged on the idea that once enough British warships had been lost to submarines, the high seas fleet could move in to deliver a decisive blow. This strategy changed when Scheer replaced Admiral Hugo von Pohl. Scheer understood that a full confrontation with the entire British fleet would be disastrous, so he sought instead to isolate a segment of it. His objective was to destroy that smaller force quickly and retreat before the rest of the British Navy could respond. To initiate the plan, Scheer ordered a bombardment of Lowestoft and Great Yarmouth on April 25, 1916. This aggressive action was meant to provoke a British response. The British did exactly what Scheer expected. Admiral Jellicoe dispatched the 5th Battle Squadron to support Beattie's battlecruisers, temporarily separating them from the main Grand Fleet. With this opportunity in hand, Scheer launched the second phase of his plan. Vice Admiral Hipper led a force that included the battlecruiser Lutzow and 4 light cruisers toward the Norwegian coast, hoping to be spotted and pursued by Beattie. Scheer followed roughly 50 miles behind, ready to strike when the British forces were fully engaged. Scheer's expectation was that once Beattie committed to battle, the high seas fleet would close in and annihilate the British detachment. With Beattie's ships eliminated, Germany would be in a better position to confront Jellicoe and challenge British control of the North Sea. The plan was carefully executed, but the Germans were unaware that their signals had been intercepted. British intelligence had already alerted the fleet to the German movements, and before Hipper's ships had even set sail, the Grand Fleet was already en route to link up with Beattie. Early in the morning on May 31st, Hipper's group finally left port, leading a force of over 100 ships carrying around 45,000 sailors. Scheer remained unaware that instead of ambushing a smaller fleet, he was about to face more than 150 British ships and over 60,000 men in what would become the largest naval battle of the war. By early afternoon, both fleets were on a direct course toward each other, yet neither side realized how close they were. Hipper could not be certain whether his maneuver had successfully drawn Beatty out, and the British believed it was likely to be another routine patrol with no German ships encountered. This belief was further strengthened when Jellicoe noted that the call sign of the German flagship was still being received from its home port. Asterisk, at the port of Yatabutzin, signals indicated that the German ships hadn't moved. At 2:20 p.m., both German and British sailors spotted smoke from a distant ship. Each side sent torpedo boats to investigate, and although the vessel turned out to be a Dutch merchant ship, the two forces sighted one another, and cries of enemy in sight echoed on both sides. The bulk of the British Grand Fleet was still 56 miles north of Beatty's position, giving the Germans the impression they had the upper hand. Asterisk, as the torpedo boats began to engage, Hipper and Beatty advanced with their main fleets. By 3:20 p.m., both sides had formed battle lines, ready to fire. Hipper's flagship, LTZOW, opened fire on the British, initiating full combat. Asterisk, in the early phase of the battle, the German fleet displayed superior gunnery skills, landing repeated hits while the British struggled with accuracy. Many British shells overshot their targets, while German fire struck home with devastating effect. Beatty's ships, including Lion, Princess Royal, and Tiger, sustained significant damage. The Indefatigable, hit by 2 salvos from von Detan capsized and sank. The 5th Battle Squadron, having initially lagged behind, soon joined the British line. Their powerful guns inflicted heavy damage on Hipper's battlecruisers, forcing German torpedo boats to interpose themselves and draw British fire. Asterisk, despite the pressure, German precision continued to prove deadly. The British battlecruiser Queen Mary was struck in her magazine and exploded in a massive blast. As the engagement continued, a British light cruiser squadron patrolling south of Beatty's main force spotted Scheer's high seas fleet approaching Asterisk. Upon realizing the full German fleet was engaged, Beatty pulled back, giving the impression of retreat. In reality, he was drawing the Germans northward, straight into the path of the Grand Fleet. Visibility was rapidly deteriorating, and Admiral Jellicoe, still 40 miles from Beatty, needed precise coordinates to transition from column formation into a line of battle. At a critical moment, Jellicoe received a radio message from Beatty with the German fleet's location and direction. Jellicoe made the most pivotal decision of the battle, ordering his fleet to deploy on the port wing division. This allowed the British to take advantage of the fading daylight and block Scheer's path of retreat. As the last British battleship turned into position, the mist cleared just enough to reveal the leading elements of the high seas fleet heading straight toward them. Roughly 100 British warships prepared to open fire. Jellicoe had outmaneuvered Scheer. The German fleet was forced to fire only its forward guns as it advanced into the trap. The British launched a fierce bombardment, but the German ships withstood the assault thanks to their solid construction and the limited effectiveness of British shells. The Germans managed to sink HMS Invincible before Scheer ordered a retreat. The withdrawal was skillfully executed, aided by torpedo boats laying smokescreens, and the British were left uncertain by the sudden German withdrawal after relatively few losses. In a surprising and still debated move, Scheer abruptly turned his fleet around and charged the Grand Fleet a second time. Some speculate he hoped to encircle the British or inflict further damage, but the maneuver quickly backfired. The British responded with overwhelming firepower, sinking several German ships. Scheer realized his error and ordered a second retreat. This time, the withdrawal was chaotic, with some German ships fleeing before orders were officially issued. German torpedo boats once again played a critical role, launching desperate attacks and sacrificing themselves to shield the fleet from total destruction. Meanwhile, the British Grand Fleet attempted to cut off the German retreat, but night fell over the North Sea, complicating the chase. In a final strategic move, the German fleet avoided the British line and navigated through the mined waters near Horn's Reef, slipping away before Jellicoe could learn of their position. The high seas fleet was intact, and though the British had won the field, They paid dearly for it. Asterisk, British losses exceeded German ones in both ships and personnel. The British lost 3 battlecruisers, 3 cruisers, and 8 destroyers. The Germans lost 1 battleship, 1 battlecruiser, 4 light cruisers, and 5 torpedo boats. British casualties were more than twice those of the Germans. Asterisk, despite the British tactical victory, the Germans claimed success due to the damage they inflicted. Still, the battle had far more serious consequences for the German Navy. Scheer's fleet would remain in port for an extended period, while the British Grand Fleet resumed patrols of the North Sea just 4 days later.